So this video is going to be a little different than my usual content, as today I'm going to be doing a 3x3. It's been a thing in the anime community for a while, and I figured I'd share my personal grid and provide some insight on the anime I've chosen. And if you're not familiar, it's a grid consisting of 3 rows and 3 columns where every cell is an anime. The purpose of a 3x3 is simply a visual representation of a fan's tastes. Many people create 3x3s of their top animes, favorite characters, themes, and just about anything you can think of. My 3x3 is going to be based on what represents my tastes. It'll be a blend of my favorite anime, shows that I think are great, and anime that generally fit into themes or tropes that I personally enjoy. And so without further ado, I'll get us started. So this first entry I have is definitely more of a troll pick, but it's also one of those shows that corrupted a bit of my tastes. Or maybe it was just an outlier. It's the type of anime that's just so bad it's good. It's infamous and controversial for all the right reasons, and even I think I'm quite delusional with this pick. And that pick is School Days. And I know what you're thinking, it's a terrible show. And to that, I say you are absolutely correct. It's definitely an anime that traumatized me when I first watched it. It's an abomination that showcases a love gone wrong and teenagers who have no concept of accountability. It's a show that tells you what not to do in a relationship. I think part of the reason why I came to love this anime is because of the utter ridiculousness of its premise and characters. I believe the creators knew what they were trying to do, crafting a character so universally hated like the protagonist, Makoto. They tried everything they could to rage bait the viewers, and they were successful. I've even rewatched this as recently as a few months ago, and it's been hilarious. It may have traumatized me the first time, but once you stop giving a crap about the monkey brain stuff that happens, it's quite a fun watch. And not to mention, this anime prompted me to read the original visual novel, where I obtained a normal, happy ending in a sea of despair. It's also one of the first visual novels that I've played, so it holds a somewhat special place in my heart. And for that, it deserves its place on my grid. Just like School Days, the second entry is kind of trashy, but takes itself a bit more seriously. It's an older romance anime that has its fair share of harem and drama. That anime is Myself Yourself. To be honest, I don't really remember what happened in this anime, considering I watched it way back in the day. But the reason why it's on here is because of what it represents. For the longest time, and even now, I've always enjoyed the drama genre in anime. And most of the dramas I enjoy all follow the same pattern. They're usually old, mostly from the 2000s, set in a small town, involve some sort of love triangle, and oftentimes are melodramatic. And a good chunk of those animes are usually subpar in actual art, animation, and story, but they've never failed to keep me invested. It's essentially like witnessing somebody else's drama unfold right before your eyes. You love to listen in on the juicy details, but not actually be part of it. It's more like looking back at shows like Myself Yourself that reminds me of a time when I was quite young and naive, when the world felt smaller, and it's those struggles and adversity that I just can't help but enjoy seeing in anime. And when I see dramatic moments in anime, I like to say, if it makes you feel like shit, it's probably good. That was my mindset for Myself Yourself. Of course, I could have chosen other animes I liked more, but Myself Yourself is a good anime to place here that reminds me that I don't need an anime that's perfect in order for me to enjoy certain aspects of what it represents. The third item on my 3x3 is one that explored one of my greatest interests. I had seen this anime when I was a sophomore in college, and at the time I was studying computer science. But before CS, I initially was accepted into my university as a film major. This is important because the setting of this anime is a university, focusing on film, theater, creative writing, and music. Back in high school, I was very interested in filmmaking, editing, and crafting narratives that I could record and share with others. It was sort of a passion I had, even taking a course in my school's video production class. That was where I learned certain editing techniques, camera work, and overall the processes that went into producing a film. So it came as a delightful surprise when I found an anime called Remake Our Life that showcased what my student life could have been had I not changed my major. Of course, not only that, but the way the anime portrayed the stages of filmmaking reminded me much of what I had gone through in high school. It felt like a blast from the past, watching the thrill of creating a film with a group, the joyous laughter from bloopers, and the hardship that comes with producing a work. Seeing one of my many passions recreated in an animated format, I felt sort of seen. In fact, it may have even inspired me to do YouTube. What also made this worthy as a 3x3 pick were the themes and narratives that Remake Our Life provided through its characters. The anime tackled things like passion, regret, burnout, and consequences. The passion that leads someone to pour their heart out, to create something meaningful. The regrets we have over missed opportunities from the past that haunt us. The very real feeling of exhaustion and burnout from something you enjoy, and the consequences of our actions that we live with. Remake Our Life is a very meaningful story that entered my life at a time when I was still figuring things out. It's a piece of media that reinvigorated an old hobby that I left behind, one that I now partake in today. Fourth on this list is an anime that's actually quite genius in its plot twist, utilizing the chaos and panic of an earthquake. It was an intriguing and masterful execution in its foreshadowing that dissected the intricacies of the human mind in times of psychological duress. It's a premise as simple as two siblings caught up in a devastating earthquake. The anime follows our two leads as they traverse through the rubble of the city, seeking shelter. Our characters, in spite of that carnage, are able to persevere and keep their morale up. In times of destruction at this scale, it's always important to understand that community is what keeps everyone from giving up. I remember watching this anime and seeing the assurance between our leads working to make it back home safe and sound. But what truly struck me, and this is true for most people who've watched it, is how the show played us for a fool, convincing us of that false sense of security. And it makes a lot of sense. By the time the twist had happened, it was heartbreakingly tragic. I found myself bawling my eyes out after that realization. But beyond the emotional weight behind it was a perfectly planned and executed plot device that made sense of the chaos in the situation. It played on the psychology of our characters, exploiting their disaster-induced stress in order to craft a false reality that fooled everybody. Anime that deals with themes of tragedy and psychology is one of my favorite things to consume and has become quite a niche for me. That's why Tokyo Magnitude 8.0 made it as one of my choices, because it blended tragedy with psychology. It's one of those anime that made me question not only myself, but also if what's happening on screen is true or just fantasy. This next entry provides a compelling psychological thriller and is from the acclaimed Satoshi Kon, called Paranoia Agent. Like many other Satoshi Kon works, it provides many subtle criticisms and social commentary about contemporary Japanese society. It's hidden through its symbolism, writing, and portrayals of the human condition at large within society. The most intriguing thing about Paranoia Agent is its main focus and portrayal of its namesake, paranoia. More specifically, the conditions in which mass hysteria spreads throughout society. Watching this anime felt like a fever dream. I'm left in a constant state of confusion about who and what the source of hysteria is. Is it a conscious entity? Is it a person? Is it an urban legend? Is it some sort of fear? The anime really brings into question the legitimacy of this entity and how much influence it has over the fears of others. How did it come to be? Why is it happening at such a large scale? In its quest to answer these questions, the anime investigates the psychology behind people, specifically examining the victims of such hysteria and the conditions that induced it, such as somebody under duress or someone who has given up on life. And moreover, the anime also explores the propagation of media and how that plays a role in spreading this hysteria in the first place. Paranoia Agent is a very fascinating psychological thriller that asks you questions and forces you to pay attention to the things happening on screen. It doesn't neatly tell you exactly how things happen, as the anime can get convoluted. But that's the point. By the time the conclusion comes, you can make sense of its themes and piece together the narrative. It's animes like this that don't hold your hand, forcing you to think that I can't help but gravitate towards. For me, it may be challenging at times, but it's engaging and forms a deeper connection to the media I consume, which definitely deserves a spot on my 3x3. Now, these last four are a few of my favorites of all time, and you're gonna see a bit of a pattern emerge with these. This next entry is an anime that I got into a couple years ago that I had wished I had gotten into sooner. It's sourced from a visual novel more in line with the sci-fi genre. Imagine you witness a tragic scene that unfolded before your eyes, and suddenly the timeline shifts after some mindless tampering on a machine that was supposed to be a gimmick. Then another tragedy happens, and now you're on a never-ending quest to traverse world lines until you reach the one that avoids everything. That anime is Steins. Steins is one of the few anime I would consider a masterpiece. While some would argue it had a very slow start, I beg to differ. The pacing of the first half of the anime provides key information about the world of Steins Gate, the conspiracies that drape over the narrative, interactions, relationships, and development between our characters and their dynamics, and a building suspense. By the time the anime reaches its second half, we understand why all of it was important. It revealed the consequences of time leaping, world line switching, as well as the stakes our characters had in response to the overarching conspiracy they found themselves in. But the true identity of Steins Gate, at least in my opinion, and the things I found most compelling, is that it highlights the dilemma presented by choice and the feeling of isolation that came after. In Steins Gate, our characters make choices that affect the outcome of a world line. They make choices that ultimately put them in between a rock and a hard place. One example is our main character having to contend with saving one person over the other and what the best solution is. It's not a choice that one can make, especially if it's between two people you both love equally. The thing I found so gripping about this anime is how it's able to tell a immersive story and explore certain themes by utilizing its sci-fi aspects. It blends moral dilemmas with tools such as a time leap machine as a means to correct the mistakes of the past. Imagine you're so adverse to the possibility of losing people that you continuously loop over and over again, with no possibility for a reality that ends with an ideal outcome. At some point, you end up looping not to fix the issue, but to prevent it from happening, at the cost of your own mental fortitude. And every time you do so, those same people don't remember you. The person who's been forging countless interactions over many timelines, but only the you before it all happened. It's as if these memories had never existed, and you feel alone, never truly able to confide in anybody in a spiral of hopelessness. It's in that portrayal of isolation that really spoke to me. What was a cool story about time travel turns into an emotional roller coaster that highlights the most basic needs that we all have: belonging. This next entry is one that's very near and dear to my heart and sits at my top 5 anime of all time. It's an anime that explores the value of friendship, the importance of good deeds, and the uniquely beautiful bonds of family. It's an anime that has its fair share of drama and dilemmas, infamously known to bring those who watch it to tears no matter which arc is explored. The anime blends the everyday slice of life with fantasy elements and real-world struggles, whether that be in love or life at large. It's an intimate work of art that changed my perspective on how I view family, friends, and taught me what redemption, forgiveness, and sacrifice look like. Clannad as a whole, but especially Clannad Afterstory, is one of my favorite animes of all time, and nothing will ever change that. I had seen this anime during an odd time of my life. It was a time of confusion and angst. I remember watching it for the first time, finishing it, and having come out of it with a fresh new perspective. And here's what it gave me: an understanding of the hardships of parenting and the amount of sacrifice a parent takes for their child. It was a valuable perspective because it was the one thing I needed in my young life that had transformed my bitter perspective on my parents into one of empathy and a deeper appreciation and acknowledgement of the things they must have given up for me. Clannad quite literally made me into a better person and allowed me to honor my parents in a way I had never done so before. It taught me the weight of forgiveness, as well as provided a compelling story about redemption. Clannad didn't showcase it through abstractions. Rather, the anime embodied the irresponsibility and neglectfulness of our protagonist. Once the turning point was reached, we see him in a new light that highlights his growth. And another key takeaway, it made me realize the sacrifices my parents made by virtue of our protagonist, and I also want to emulate that same sort of virtue. Clannad Afterstory, therefore, deserves its place on this grid. The second to last entry applies more so to an entire trilogy of movies, but with a particular focus on one of its installments. It's a trilogy that belongs to a beloved and popular franchise, Fate. The trilogy pertains to Heavensfeel, which is one of the 3 routes of Fate's Stay Night. Heavensfeel, as a trilogy, has become a beloved series of works for me because it's a dark fantasy that provides a compelling deconstruction of heroism in the perspective of the trolley problem, excellent foreshadowing, subtle horror, and a romance laced with terror. In my opinion, Heavensfeel is the best iteration of Fate's Stay Night and had a dark twist that kept me invested. The way the mystery behind the Black Shadow wrapping itself over the entirety of the trilogy really gave a foreboding dread. But the movie I wanted to highlight is Lost Butterfly, the second movie in the trilogy. And what made that movie so special was the relationship between our leads. It was a romance that felt real. And the way the anime seemed to do everything in its power to pull them apart was heart-wrenching. Whether that was to antagonize our heroine, the dilemma of our protagonist in choosing her or the world, or the subtle foreshadowing that loomed over them. Through every intimate moment between the two, there was this unexplainable feeling that something felt wrong. Despite how romantic and beautiful the moment felt, it was always a lingering feeling. The way dreams and reality blended, especially in its juxtaposition between a seemingly happy fantasy that quickly dissolved into a horrific murder. Lost Butterfly, and Heavensfeel as a whole, had a way to convey the stakes of its narrative by making it personal. When I had mentioned that Heavensfeel explored the trolley problem, it was in reference to our leads. It explored the choice between saving the many over the few and saving the few over the many. That's what I really enjoyed about it, because it explored that heroism isn't just utilitarianism, but a question of who we prioritize. If it means it becomes an us against the world type of narrative, then that's what I love to see. And as a longtime Fate fan, I just had to add this on here. And last but not least, my favorite anime of all time. Have you ever been put into a situation where you had to make a choice that results in the preservation of something, but the destruction of the other? It could be something as simple as choosing between two career choices. One leads you down a path, while you abandon the other. But what if that choice had higher stakes? What if it involved life and death, with human life hanging on the balance? Now, imagine you are a surgeon, and there are two people you must choose to operate on. One is an influential man, the other one is a young boy who arrived just before him. Your acting director tells you to prioritize the man, but you believe the boy should go first. You defy your superiors and operate on the boy, ultimately saving his life, but at the expense of the other, succumbing to his injuries. But several years down the line, the boy turns out to be a cold-blooded killer, and you now must live with your choice of birthing a monster. Monster is an anime that tells such a profound story about the actions of one man who believed he acted in good faith. But that action steadily became regret, as his act in saving that little boy on that fateful day would eventually come back to haunt him. This anime explores human morality in a way that is heavy and dark. It gives our protagonist an obvious choice that isn't so obvious once the revelation settles in. What I love about Monster is that it sets up these moral dilemmas for our characters and examines how they react, the rationale, and the guilt they carry. Even for an obvious choice, our protagonist halts his career as a surgeon and embarks on a journey to right his wrongs. Whether or not we debate if his choice was moral does not matter. He's the one who treated the boy. He is the one that carries the weight of guilt, and the lives of those who have been affected by his actions. Throughout the anime, we really see the transformation of our protagonist, as well as the moral dilemma he finds himself in. Whether he takes responsibility and kills the boy, taking justice into his own hands, or he resists, staying true to his principles. It's in that fight against compromising his own values with the obsession he holds that truly raises the stakes in this anime. I just love how the anime explores these uncomfortable topics within human morality, obsession, justice, the weight of regret and responsibility, and the idea that there are no second chances. Monster might be a thriller, but it's also an important case study of the depths of humanity. It's a complex show that seeks to unravel the moral grayness of people, to understand evildoers, and to witness the struggle against temptation and vigilantism. There's no other anime I would intentionally put in the center of this 3x3 other than Monster. And there you have it. My personal 3x3. Looking at it now, it might be a little all over the place, and that's kind of the point. You've got psychological thrillers, emotional dramas, dark fantasies, and even a couple of questionable picks that are there more for what they represent than how good they actually are. It's a snapshot of the kinds of stories that resonated with me, the themes I enjoy, and the specific emotions I felt when watching. So while it might look a little chaotic, this grid pretty much sums up the kinds of stories that I look for in anime.